I don't need very much authority to get everything done I need to do. I don't need the full title. All I need is the authority from the president to put me in here as some degree of acting, and I will make sure that his intent gets completed. I don't stop at yield signs.
That's new acting FEMA Chief David Richardson, letting all the FEMA employees know that he's so stupid, so incredibly incompetent, that he has to mask it with empty tough talk about how badass he is.
This is a 17-minute-long speech that was given to thousands of FEMA personnel, both at FEMA headquarters in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country, that current FEMA employees described to me as being unhinged, terrifying, and threatening. And Juliet, during his address, he told FEMA employees, quote, "I and I alone speak for FEMA." He went on to say that he has never read a book on leadership before, but is fine operating in chaos. The former Marine also warned his new coworkers not to get in his way as he works to reform and reduce the size of this agency.
There's somewhere south of 20% that decide that they are going to get in the way of change. You can ask anybody that those 20% of the people are a problem. And they have to be sidelined. So don't get in my way if you're those 20% of the people. I know all the tricks, okay? I know them from lance corporals. I know them from staff sergeants, lieutenants, federal employees, my own employees, and indeed myself, okay? I've played the games too. Obfuscation, delay, undermining. If you're one of those 20% of the people and you think those tactics and techniques are going to help you, they will not, because I will run right over you. I will achieve the president's intent.
He said he's there to carry out the president's intent because he's extremely anti-American and follows the orders of a king, like a lost puppy looking for an owner to tug at his leash. Since he passed the administration's requirements of being an ignorant and proud ass-kisser, Richardson was quickly put in place without even knowing the country he hates has a hurricane season that just started. So before supporters start to catch the hint that he's about to destroy their lives, DHS ran minimal damage control. A spokesperson said the comment was a joke and that FEMA is prepared for hurricane season. The spokesman said under Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Richardson, FEMA is shifting from bloated, DC-centric deadweight to a lean, deployable disaster force that empowers state actors to provide relief for their citizens. Despite mean-spirited attempts to falsely frame a joke as policy, there's no uncertainty about what FEMA will be doing this hurricane season. FEMA is laser-focused on disaster response and protecting the American people. The spokesperson added that Richardson is activated in preparation for hurricane season. But to illustrate the fact that they can't even keep their dismissive talking points together, Richardson said during the briefing that there would be no changes to the agency's disaster response plans, despite having told staff to expect a new plan in May. Richardson's comments come amid widespread concern that the departures of a raft of top FEMA officials, staff cuts, and reductions in hurricane preparations will leave the agency ill-prepared for a storm season forecast to be above normal. Now, in other words, for all the Americans that'll experience tornadoes, some hurricanes, flooding, wildfires, property damage, and will be in need of life-saving supplies and support, good luck. Because this administration told us during the campaign that they want nothing to do with governing or representing the American people.
Donald Trump and members of administration have been talking about getting rid of FEMA since just days after he started his second term.
FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. We're going to be doing something on FEMA that I think most people agree. I'd like to see the states take care of disasters. Let the state take care of the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all of the other things that happen.
We're going to eliminate FEMA.
So, just like with mass deportations, violating the Constitution, price hiking tariffs, and every other harmful policy that this president told supporters that he'd implement, he convinced them to be on board with their own destruction with the hateful veil of disinformation.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season. They're trying to get them on the voters roll. We cannot let that happen. This is the worst response in the history of hurricanes.
We have a problem in North Carolina. We had a big hurricane and really hurt a lot of my voters. And I hope.
And you're headed to Georgia today.
I hope that my voters, I mean, they lost their homes and they're being treated horribly by Biden and Harris. Nobody knows her as Harris. You know, you say Harris, everyone says, who's Harris? But they're being treated terribly by Biden and Harris. Very little relief. They're going out of their way to hurt these people. And I hope they just say, we're going to get you and we're going to not let, you know, they're being treated very badly in the Republican areas, right? In North Carolina, the government is treating them very bad. It's a Democrat governor.
I hope they get the need.
They're being treated very badly. And the Biden-Harris team is also treating Republican areas. They're not getting water. They're not getting anything. I hope they're going to say, we're going out to vote. We're going to get rid of these people because they have destroyed our country. What they've done to our country. The good news, I'm going to fix it because some areas that are like 100% Trump have been just decimated. And if I were president, they would be taken care of so well. But these people are they're going out of their way to hurt these people, which shows you how sick and how evil this administration is.
Yeah, it was a full court press of lies, solely meant to fool gullible people into thinking they gave a damn about their lives when hurricanes hit.
I want to go back to what former President Trump said. He said they're going out of their way to not help people in Republican areas. There is no truth to that. And on staging, Pentagon officials say that active duty troops were staged and ready to go before being called upon and were instantly out the door. So President Trump, former President Trump, is saying things that aren't true about that money being withheld from Republican areas.
Well, Martha, I think you're actually confusing staging of resources from the rapid response of the U.S. military. And I think all the president has said is, frankly, what some of Kamala Harris's surrogates have said, which is that if these areas were a little bit more democratic, maybe Kamala Harris would have focused on them more. That acknowledgement is not to attack, frankly, the good folks of FEMA. It's to suggest that Americans are feeling left behind by their government, which they are, Martha. People are worried that their government doesn't care about them. I'm much more worried about the incompetence of Kamala Harris's administration that led to that more than
Senator
I am
Vance,
the fact that Donald
Senator
Trump
Vance, I'm just going to say that local officials and FEMA officials say that is just flat wrong.
You know, but they lazily called pushback and follow-ups like that from Arthur Raddatz some fake news. There were no claims of domestic terrorism from Republicans when some of their homegrowns responded to the lies by taking to the streets and getting violent.
William Jacob Parsons was carrying a handgun and a rifle when he was taken into custody on Saturday. The 44-year-old was arrested amid a wave of misinformation about FEMA operations and the storm disaster response. Over the weekend, the agency says it evacuated and relocated staff members over safety concerns.
This all comes on the heels of threats that are being made against FEMA staff. And over the weekend, as you mentioned, William Parsons was arrested in Rutherford County. He had a handgun and a rifle on him. He was posted bond, $10,000, and has since been released. But as a result, FEMA has made some operational adjustments, as they said, moving forward.
And when the victims of the storms took to the social media pages themselves to break through and tell the truth about what the FEMA response looked like, despite Trump's lies, MAGA still wouldn't listen.
I need y'all to hear me when I say this. If you're one of the people that's getting online right now and saying that FEMA's only giving out $750 in assistance, or that FEMA's out of money because they've been diverting it towards the border or for migrants, or that FEMA is confiscating donations and money, f*** you. And I mean that to the depths of my soul with every fiber of my being. Because the only thing that tells me when you say like that is that you have been so fortunate to never have to use FEMA, to never have gone through something like this. I cannot describe to you the level of rage I have experienced over the last few days, watching y'all spread this mis and disinformation that will get people killed, that will keep people from getting the money and resources that they need to recover.
I go back to all this very recent history because too many people have a short memory of how we got to this point and why they just might find themselves homeless and without food or water, only to hear this administration continue to deploy their latest tactic of claiming that all the disaster that they're inflicting is still somehow Joe Biden's fault. Trump expects people to forget that he promised to eliminate the agencies that help them while somehow spinning it as a way to make America better. Because now that the shit is hitting the fan on FEMA, even this administration's allies in Congress have been begging for the help that they vowed to eliminate. It's time that you stop trusting your lives to the people that told you that they only want your political enemies dead, thinking it somehow won't affect you.
Commit to helping for those 3 major disaster declaration requests that are pending. Will you help expedite those, Secretary Noem, and get those in front of the president, get those approved? We are desperate for the assistance in Missouri.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Make
you.
sure the application gets to the White House as soon as possible.
Fantastic, thank you. And can I also have your commitment that if and when the president approves a major disaster declaration for this storm that just happened on Friday in St. Louis, will you expedite as much as possible FEMA individual assistance for those who qualify for it in the St. Louis area?
Yes.
And I want to tell you just how important that is, because as I toured these streets and walked and talked to the residents, what I heard over and over is many of these folks don't have insurance.
Yeah.
You know, many of these folks, they either got their homes from a family member, or they bought them from a family member, so they don't have a mortgage on the property, and therefore they don't have homeowners insurance. So, as you know, having been a governor, in many instances, FEMA assistance is going to be the only assistance